Behind the scenes, few people know that Leonardo DiCaprio, one of the most influential and respected actors of his generation, an Oscar winner, also known for his passionate environmental and philanthropic work, invested a significant part of his fortune to build a state-of-the-art hospital. The core idea was simple yet powerful: to treat every single person with dignity and provide excellent care, regardless of their financial status. He truly believed that success only finds its meaning when it is shared, when it uplifts others. One day, driven by a persistent unease fueled by some worrying anonymous reports that contrasted sharply with official reassurances, he decides to visit the hospital himself. But not as the owner. He chooses to go undercover, disguised as an ordinary patient seeking help. He walks through the main entrance, his features partially obscured, hoping to see the reality of his vision in action. He expects to find compassion, efficiency, and competence. Instead, he would soon discover a harsh and troubling truth lurking beneath the surface. Leonardo sat in his private office some time earlier, gazing out of the large panoramic window. Below, the sprawling city lights glittered. Cars moved like streams of light, and countless lives unfolded, often intersecting, yet rarely truly noticing one another. He had achieved immense success, fame, fortune, global respect. But the memory of times when he felt unseen or judged solely on appearance never faded. It was this memory, this empathy, that drove him to invest in the hospital. It wasn't just charity. It was meant to be a model institution, a beacon of hope where human dignity was paramount. However, something felt deeply wrong. While official reports painted a picture of smooth operations, the anonymous complaints spoke of neglect and disrespect. This dissonance was unacceptable. Leonardo decided he had to see the truth with his own eyes. That evening, pulling on a worn-out jacket and donning a simple cap pulled low, he slipped out unnoticed and headed towards the hospital, not in a luxury car, but blending into the city's rhythm. He walked in through the main doors, just another face in the evening crowd. He approached the reception desk. A weary-looking woman typed monotonously on her computer, barely acknowledging his presence. Leonardo DiCaprio, a man whose face was recognized across the globe, now stood waiting, deliberately unremarkable. Finally, the receptionist glanced up, her expression shifting to impatience as her eyes quickly scanned his simple, unassuming clothes. An eyebrow arched slightly. "Yes?" she asked, her tone flat. Leonardo, keeping his voice neutral, replied, "Good evening. I'd like to schedule a consultation, please." He paid the required fee in cash, avoiding any form of identification that might give him away. The receptionist sighed audibly, rolled her eyes, and handed him a numbered slip of paper with barely concealed disdain. "Take a seat and wait your turn," she instructed curtly. "It's going to be a while." Leonardo accepted the paper without a word and made his way to the designated waiting area. The air hung heavy with a mixture of anxiety and quiet suffering. He found an empty chair between an elderly man, whose face was etched with lines of pain as he subtly clutched his chest, and a young mother, desperately trying to soothe a restless, feverish baby cradled in her arms. Leonardo observed the scene, his gaze taking everything in. He watched as the mother, her eyes reflecting exhaustion and brimming tears, eventually stood up and approached the reception desk again, her voice trembling as she inquired about the wait time for her clearly ill child. He then noticed the elderly man beside him breathing heavily, wincing with each intake of breath, trying weakly to get the attention of a passing nurse. A young nurse did walk past, but gave the man only a cursory glance before hurrying on. The receptionist didn't even look up from her screen when the mother pleaded again. "Ma'am," the receptionist snapped, her irritation palpable. "I told you already. You need to wait your turn. He's not the only sick person here. Perhaps you should consider a public hospital. We adhere strictly to procedures here." Just then, Leonardo glanced towards the entrance and saw a well-dressed man in expensive tailored suit stride past the reception desk with an air of entitlement. He needed no number, no waiting. The staff immediately straightened up, smiles appearing on their faces as they quickly made way for him. "Sir," one of the nurses chimed, "Dr. Evans is expecting you. You can go right in." Leonardo watched the blatant hypocrisy unfold. The wealthy treated like royalty, while those genuinely in need were dismissed or ignored. He felt his jaw tighten, a familiar fire of indignation starting to build within him. But he forced himself to remain calm, breathing deeply. He needed to see more, understand more, before taking any action. After witnessing this disparity, Leonardo watched as the distraught mother returned to her seat, defeated, trying to comfort her crying child. He saw the elderly man beside him, still struggling, his condition seemingly worsening. A few minutes later, a young man stumbled into the reception area, clutching his hand tightly. A blood-soaked cloth was pressed against a deep gash, his face pale with pain and urgency. I cut myself badly," he stammered to the receptionist. The receptionist gave him a dismissive nod and vaguely gestured towards the corridor. "Dr. Evans's office is down there," she said, her voice devoid of concern. Leonardo leaned forward slightly, his attention sharp. He was now witnessing firsthand the very issues the anonymous complaints had described. Something had to change, and soon. The young man hesitated for a moment before heading towards the indicated office. Soon after, the arrogant, mocking voice of Dr. Mark Evans echoed from the corridor, cutting through the low hum of the waiting area. "What's this fuss about?" Dr. Evans emerged, standing in his doorway. He wore a spotless white coat, his hair perfectly styled, holding a cup of expensive-looking coffee. He eyed the young man with thinly veiled contempt. "Doctor," the young man pleaded, holding up his bleeding hand. "It hurts a lot. I think I need stitches." Dr. Evans let out a short, sarcastic laugh. "It's just a scratch, kid. Honestly, the drama. Put some rubbing alcohol on it when you get home." The young man looked stunned. "But it's deep," he insisted. Dr. Evans waved him away dismissively, his patience clearly gone. "Look, there are actually sick people here, people who might be dying. You expect me to waste my valuable time on a little cut like yours? Get out of here." The young man, humiliated and still bleeding, turned and walked away without receiving proper care. Leonardo stood up instantly. He approached the retreating young man. "Hey," he said gently, "let me see your hand." The young man looked up, surprised. Leonardo offered a calm, reassuring smile. Reaching into his own jacket, he pulled out a clean handkerchief and carefully pressed it against the wound. Dr. Evans watched this interaction from his doorway with a mixture of annoyance and detached amusement, completely oblivious to who was standing before him. Had he known, his demeanor would undoubtedly have been drastically different. Leonardo returned to his seat, outwardly calm, but inside, a storm was brewing. He had seen enough. The callousness, the neglect, the blatant indifference personified by Dr. Mark Evans, apparently a senior doctor in this wing. Dr. Evans acted with unchecked arrogance, treating patients not as people needing help, but as inconveniences interrupting his day. Leonardo DiCaprio, the man whose vision and funds built this place, was about to challenge that reality. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, his number was called, his assumed name echoing blandly. Next patient. Taking a deep breath, Leonardo slowly stood and walked towards Dr. Evans's office. The doctor was seated behind a large, clean desk, typing on his computer, seemingly absorbed in his screen. The office itself was modern, minimalistic, but felt cold, impersonal. Without looking up, Dr. Evans muttered distractedly, "So, what's the problem?" Leonardo observed him for a silent moment before replying calmly, "I've been experiencing persistent fatigue and some muscle pain recently. I'd like to get it checked out." Dr. Evans finally glanced up, his eyes briefly flicking over Leonardo's ordinary clothes, the worn jacket, the simple jeans. A faint frown touched his lips, as if assessing someone who didn't quite belong. Then, a small, condescending smirk appeared. "Fatigue and muscle pain?" he echoed, his tone laced with sarcasm. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Look, this hospital provides top-tier care. We prioritize serious cases." The implication was clear. Leonardo's complaint, and perhaps Leonardo himself, wasn't worth his time. Leonardo remained still, his expression unreadable, though a flicker of steely resolve hardened his eyes. He had faced prejudice and underestimation before, judged by appearances. But experiencing it here, in the very hospital he had founded to combat such attitudes, felt like a profound betrayal. Dr. Evans sighed dramatically, maintaining his smug air. All right, let's get this over with." He picked up his stethoscope reluctantly, performed a cursory, almost dismissive check, barely listening to Leonardo's chest. "Any history? Allergies?" he asked perfunctorily, already scribbling on a prescription pad. Leonardo started to explain, but Dr. Evans cut him off. In less than 3 minutes, he tore the sheet off the pad and slid it across the desk. "You're fine. Probably just stress. Take some standard painkillers. Get some rest." Leonardo looked at the prescription, then back at the doctor. "Aren't you going to ask more questions? Maybe run some tests? What if it's something more serious?" Dr. Evans rolled his eyes, his impatience boiling over. "I already told you, you're fine. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual patients to attend to, people who genuinely need my expertise." It was that moment, the emphasis on actual patients, that solidified Leonardo's understanding. This wasn't just rudeness. Dr. Evans genuinely seemed to believe some lives held more value than others. It was a fundamental moral failing, poisoning the hospital's purpose. Leonardo stood up slowly, walked towards the door, then paused, turning back to look at the doctor one last time. His gaze was calm but carried an unexpected intensity. Dr. Evans looked up, annoyed and slightly perplexed by the silent scrutiny. "Anything else?" he snapped. Leonardo offered a small, tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thank you for your time, doctor," he said quietly, then walked out. As he stepped into the corridor, a nurse discreetly caught his arm. "Sir," she whispered urgently, glancing around nervously, "I am so sorry about what happened in there, about how he treats people." Leonardo turned to her, his expression inviting confidence. "Is it always like this with him?" The nurse lowered her head, her voice barely audible. "Yes, he's untouchable. Management protects him. Everyone knows, but nobody dares to complain. We're afraid of losing our jobs." Leonardo absorbed this information, his resolve hardening. He had seen enough negligence. Now he understood the complicity that allowed it to fester. This wasn't just one arrogant doctor. It was a systemic failure. He knew what he had to do. He approached a nearby security guard. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I need to speak with the hospital administrator, immediately." The guard looked surprised, assessing Leonardo's simple attire. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" Leonardo met his gaze steadily. "Just tell him," he said, a quiet authority entering his tone, "that it's regarding the hospital's ownership. He'll want to hear me out." The guard hesitated, then, sensing something unusual, made the call. A short while later, Leonardo was escorted into a conference room. The hospital administrator, a middle-aged man with graying hair and a perpetually serious expression, sat waiting, arms crossed, radiating impatience. "Yes? What is this about?" the administrator asked curtly, as Leonardo entered and took a seat opposite him. Leonardo didn't rush. He sat down, composed, his posture conveying quiet determination. He locked eyes with the administrator across the polished table. The room felt suddenly silent. Then, Leonardo spoke, his voice low but carrying immense weight. "My name," he stated clearly, "is Leonardo DiCaprio." The administrator's face visibly paled. The guards flanking the door exchanged uneasy glances. "I am the primary benefactor and founder of this hospital," Leonardo continued, his voice steady and unwavering. "It appears we have a very serious problem here, and I intend to fix it, right now." The administrator swallowed hard, a cold dread washing over him. He knew, in that instant, that everything was about to change. The conference room remained thick with stunned silence. The administrator, accustomed to dealing with budgets and reports, struggled to process the reality of Leonardo DiCaprio sitting before him, not as a distant figurehead, but as a witness to the hospital's failings. Mr. DiCaprio," he stammered, attempting to regain composure. I had no idea. Had we known you were coming, we would have arranged a proper tour, ensured you received the best possible attention." Leonardo cut him off, his gaze sharp and cold. "Why would I need special treatment? Does the quality of care here depend on who the patient is?" The administrator fell silent, the implication hanging heavy in the air. Leonardo leaned forward slightly. "I saw it all," he continued, his voice resonating with controlled anger. "I saw the disrespect at the reception. I saw the indifference towards an elderly man in pain and a desperate mother with a sick child. I saw Dr. Evans humiliate that mother, dismiss a young man needing stitches, purely out of arrogance. I heard staff members whispering in fear, afraid to report abuse, because they know management, your management, protects him." The administrator squirmed, searching for words. "Mr. DiCaprio, I understand your concerns, but we must be practical. Dr. Evans, he is one of our most productive physicians. His numbers are excellent." Leonardo raised a hand, silencing him instantly. "Numbers?" His voice was dangerously quiet now. "You value statistics over human lives? Over the core principle this hospital was built on?" The administrator opened his mouth, but no defense came. Leonardo looked towards one of the security guards. "Bring Dr. Mark Evans here, now." A few tense minutes later, the conference room doors opened again. Dr. Evans strode in, an air of self-importance still clinging to him, a questioning look on his face. "What's going on? I was told—" His voice trailed off as he saw Leonardo sitting at the table. Confusion warred with his inherent arrogance. He glanced at the administrator. "Who is this?" The administrator hesitated, then spoke. His voice strained. "Dr. Evans, this is Mr. Leonardo DiCaprio, the owner of this hospital." Dr. Evans froze. The color drained from his face, his smugness evaporating instantly, replaced by disbelief and dawning horror. Leonardo addressed him directly, his voice level but stern. "Doctor, I witnessed your conduct today. I saw how you treat patients who you deem beneath you, how you dismiss suffering, humiliate the vulnerable, and prioritize your ego over your duty. Dr. Evans sputtered, I was just doing my job efficiently. Your job, Leonardo interrupted, leaning in slightly, is to care for people with compassion, not to treat them like inconveniences or debris. Your efficiency comes at the cost of basic human decency. The doctor bristled, trying to regain some footing. I am an excellent doctor. My record proves. Leonardo shook his head slowly. Your record means nothing if it's built on fear and neglect. Effective immediately, Dr. Evans, your employment at this hospital is terminated. Please escort him out. He instructed the guards. Dr. Evans stood momentarily stunned, then allowed himself to be led away, his arrogance finally shattered. With Dr. Evans gone, Leonardo turned back to the visibly shaken administrator and the nurse who had bravely spoken out earlier. This ends now, he declared. We will implement a confidential system for reporting misconduct without fear of reprisal. We will institute mandatory empathy and patient care training for all staff, from top to bottom, and we will reaffirm, in policy and practice, that every single patient who walks through these doors is treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their background or financial status. The nurse looked up, tears welling in her eyes, a hopeful smile emerging. Is that really possible, sir? Leonardo met her gaze and offered a genuine, determined smile. Yes, he said firmly. It is, and we will do it together. The administrator, seeing the futility of resistance and perhaps a path to redemption, finally nodded in solemn agreement. A quiet revolution began within the hospital walls that day. Weeks later, Leonardo returned, unannounced once more, but this time just to observe. The atmosphere felt different, lighter, more focused. He saw nurses interacting warmly with patients. He saw the elderly man from his first visit sitting comfortably, reading a book. He saw the young mother smiling as a different doctor kindly examined her now recovering baby. The young man whose hand had been cut was receiving follow-up physical therapy, treated with care. Staff seemed more motivated, engaged, proud. As Leonardo was turning to leave, feeling a cautious sense of hope that his vision was finally taking root, a small boy, perhaps 5 years old, ran up to him, eyes bright with curiosity. "Excuse me," the boy said, tugging gently at his sleeve. Leonardo crouched down to his level. "Are you the man who helped make the doctors nice?" Leonardo felt a lump form in his throat. He smiled warmly, ruffling the boy's hair. "I'm just someone who believes everyone deserves kindness," he replied, softly. The boy beamed. "Thank you. It's much better now." Looking around at the healing environment, Leonardo knew the work was far from over, but a crucial foundation had been laid. Respect and compassion, he reflected, cost nothing, but their absence exacted the highest price of all.